I've been a financial advisor now for over 20 years. And during that time, I fine-tuned a retirement planning checklist that I think most people will find super helpful. Whether you're planning to retire in 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, or maybe it's over a decade away. Having a checklist and knowing what you're building towards is super helpful. So let's jump in. This checklist has 12 items, and the first one is cash flow is king. Now, you may have heard that when it comes to businesses, but it's also super important when it comes to your personal financial situation. And what I mean by that is it's one thing to have the savings, it's one thing to have the assets, but it's another to be able to convert that into cash to fund your monthly living expenses. Certain accounts, certain investments may have penalties associated with them. If you're not at the right age for an IRA or a 401k, withdrawing money can come with a penalty associated with it. So the first thing to think about is not just, do I have enough money to retire, but can you access that money and use it to spend your bills? So sometimes people are in investments that have penalties to get out of early, or they're illiquid. Maybe you invested in a friend's business and the business might have done well, but you may not be able to get your hands on that cash right away. So I want you to think about which accounts you can access right away without a penalty. And if there are a penalty, just think about what those penalties are. So the first one, if cash flow is king, then knowing your expenses is queen. And they're close relatives. And knowing your retirement expenses is something that a lot of people guesstimate, but I really encourage you to test drive those expenses before you retire. Because just to use a simple example, let's say you're living on $7,000 a month now, and you say, well, when I'm retired, I'm not going to have the commuting expenses. I'm not going to have to pay for nice sports jackets or suits and different clothes. Maybe you don't need to drive such a nice car, so you'll be able to save some money. And so maybe instead of spending $7,000 a month, you say, you know what, I think we could live on $5,000 a month. Well, I really encourage you to test drive it, because for some people that's very simple to do and they're very happy with that. For other people, and there's no right or wrong here, for other people, they're going to say, no, I thought I could live on $5,000 a month, but you know what? I want to have access to more money and be able to spend more money. And that's good to know before you give your boss notice that you're going to be retiring. So know what your expenses are, test drive it, and if you're married, make sure you and your spouse are both on board that, you know what, this is comfortable. This would be a good retirement. So that's item number 2. Item number 3 is to have a retirement vision, right? After 20, 30, 40 years or more of working, the thought of just being able to relax and not have to have the pressures, not have the deadlines, not have to get up early 5 days a week to be in the office at a certain time. The thought of all that can be very liberating and very enticing. But I want to encourage you to really think about, outside of what you're leaving and what you're moving away from and what you're happy to not have to do anymore, I want you to have a vision. I want you to think about having a vision of what you want to do in retirement. What are you moving towards? It's an old adage, but it's true. It's important to retire to something as opposed to away from something. And again, if you're married, are you and your spouse both on the same page? Let's say it's very common for one spouse to say, you know what, I want to travel. I want to see the world. I've never been able to do that. Well, if you're married, does your spouse share that passion as well? And just thinking through both for yourself and for your spouse, and then again, if you're married, as a couple, what does retirement look like, and what do you want to be doing, and what will make retirement better than your working career? And I'm not saying it's not easy to come up with a vision that's better, but I am saying it's important to have a vision. So I encourage you to spend time on that. Now, the last 2 examples I mentioned if you're married. And on that topic, item number 4 is, I think it's really critical that you do what you can to go into retirement with as strong of a marriage as possible. Unfortunately, one of the fastest growing age groups for getting divorces is people 50 and older. If you're married and you had kids, maybe the kids went off to college, they've got their own life, and now it's you and your spouse. And thinking through, who are the two of you as a couple? What do you enjoy doing together? And just investing the time and putting in the effort and maybe, if need be, some therapy to enter your retirement in as strong of a situation as possible. I have my wife's permission to share this. Her and I have had periods where things have gone well and where we've had challenges. We have in the past talked about getting divorced. Fortunately, right now, our relationship is solid. But going to a therapist and investing the time and the effort is super important. And retirement can be a great thing and can take your relationship to the next level. It can also be a stressful thing, right? Particularly if one person is comfortable in retirement and maybe the other person has a difficulty transitioning in, that can cause some stress. So do what you can to get on the same page and to build that relationship. On a related note, it's different, but it's kind of related because it takes money, time, and effort. Investing in that is investing in your health. You want to enter retirement in as healthy of a stage as you can be. And you may not be done with that journey yet, right? You may say, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds. In my case, I want to lose closer to 15 to 20 pounds. And I may be on that journey. I may have lost 5 or 10 pounds, but I still have a little bit more weight that I want to lose, or I want to eat in a little bit healthier of a manner, or I want to cook at home instead of going out to eat. I want to cook at home 5, 6 meals a week, and maybe I'm only doing half of that now. But think about what that health journey is for you, because when we think about retirement, the thing that I think makes most of us excited about retirement is the things that we can do. And our health is key to being able to do those things that we're excited about. So the personal health, not just your physical health, but also your mental health. It can be a stressor for some people when they retire, particularly if their job gave them a lot of status, if the job was well paying, if other people in society kind of looked up to him or her because of what they were doing. That can be difficult to leave. So enter retirement, and as you get close to retirement, being as physically healthy as you can be and also as mentally healthy as you can be. Okay, the next one. If you are retiring before age 65 in the United States, where many of us are going to qualify for Medicare, it's really important that on your pre-retirement checklist, you look into how are you going to get your health care insurance? Are you going to do COBRA for 18 months, and is that going to take you to Medicare? Are you going to get your health care insurance through the Affordable Care Act, through one of those programs that are offered by the states? Thinking through your health care insurance can be and is critical. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're later in life and you're uninsured. You never want to find yourself in that situation, but boy, super risky later in life to not be insured. So really think through that ahead of time. Have a game plan for that. Okay, the next one. The world's very different than when my parents retired, probably than when your parents retired. And one of the most important things is our digital life is such a key part of how we get things done. And it's normal, if you're married again, for one spouse to have certain tasks for getting things done and another spouse to have others. So I think it's really important that you have a digital information document. How are they going to access your passwords? I recommend a password manager, a professional password manager. There's several of those that are market leaders, at least here in the United States. And have that in a document. And if you have an attorney, if you have an accountant, if you have a financial advisor, leave a copy of that document with them, and maybe they have an online secure vault, is what they call it, that you can put that in. So if God forbid something were to happen to you, either you pass away or you have an issue and you can no longer do those things, that the people around you, whether it's your adult kids, your friends, people that you've trusted with this power and this information, can access that and can still get information that you might need in order to help you out with whatever the situation is. Okay, related to that is also the legal aspects. Having a healthcare directive, having a will or a trust, having a personal power of attorney for financial issues, getting the legal side of your life in order is really critical. And it's one of those things that's super easy to put off, and you normally don't need it, but when you do need it, it's too late to put it together usually. So get that done ahead of time. It's not as expensive as most people think to do a simple will, a healthcare directive, a power of attorney for financial issues, maybe a trust. It doesn't have to be super complex. It doesn't have to be super expensive, but it's better to have that done 10 years before you need it rather than 10 minutes after you wish you had had it done. On another one, I talked about this earlier when I talked about cash flow is king. Thinking through the liquidity of your investments. Some investments do come with penalties. Annuities are a classic example of a type of investment that may have a penalty associated with it. Maybe if you sell out of that in the first couple years, you may have a penalty of 1 to 5 to maybe 7%. And the longer you hold it, usually the lower the penalty is. And then also illiquid investments, which we talked about. Investing in a friend's business, maybe investing in a startup that maybe has done very well, and on your balance sheet it looks great. But being able to access that cash can be difficult. So this is one of those things I said at the open, that if you can line these things up, even if this is a pre-retirement checklist, but some of these things, if you have 5 years, if you have 3 years until retirement, even if you have a decade, to be thinking about these things ahead of time can be super helpful. Another thing that can be super helpful is thinking through your taxes. What are your taxes going to look like in retirement? Many people, when I give a family, a couple homework and say, hey, to prepare for our next meeting, I want you thinking through your expenses so that we can look at those expenses and see how much money you do need in order to be able to retire. Oftentimes what's missing from the expenses are taxes. And for many of us, taxes are going to be, if not one of the top 3 expenses, one of the top 5 expenses. So thinking through that and accessing different accounts for cash can have dramatically different tax impacts. Let me give you a quick example. The difference between taking $10,000 out of a Roth IRA and taking $10,000 out of a regular IRA can be very different, right? With the Roth IRA, it's not going to be counted as taxable income. But with a regular IRA, it will be taxable income. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pay tax on that. Depends on what your tax bracket is. It depends whether you itemize your deductions or you use the standard deduction, and whether you've used up any of the standard deduction. Okay, and I have a bonus for you. This one's number 12, but stick around for the bonus because I think it's one of the most important ones. And so the 12th item is to get a professional second opinion. Now, admittedly, I'm biased, right? I give professional second opinions on financial plans and financial checklists. But you want to make sure that you haven't forgotten anything. For instance, super easy to forget about taxes when you're looking at expenses. So have a second opinion, preferably by a professional, whether that's your accountant or it's a financial advisor that's a fiduciary to you 100% of the time. Or sometimes it can be a friend of yours that retired a couple years earlier that's gone through this and has come across the things that maybe he or she didn't think about the first time. So get a second opinion. I think it's worth, I'm biased, but I think it's worth it to pay for a professional second opinion. And then the bonus one that I have for you here is understand how Social Security and how Medicare works. And I should put on this, related to Medicare, Fidelity would say that even with Medicare, once you're 65 years old, the average American has over $150,000 of expenses after 65 that's not going to be covered by Medicare. That's a big number. If you're married, obviously it's double that. It's over 300,000. And shockingly, that does not include long-term care insurance, which almost 80% of us, once we reach 65, are going to need long-term care insurance. Not insurance, long-term care at some point in our life. So we're going to need somebody to help us with the daily activities of living. So understand how Social Security works, understand how Medicare, and in particular, have an idea of about when you think you're going to take Social Security. Are you thinking of taking it early? You can take it as early as 62. Some situations you can even take it earlier than that. It tends to be like in a widowed situation. But understand Social Security if you take it early. So if your full retirement age is at 67, if you take it at 62, you're going to get 70% of that full retirement Social Security benefit. So you'll get 70% of that. Essentially, every year you take it before your full retirement age, you lose 5 to 7% of that benefit. Conversely, for every year that you wait past full retirement age, you gain 8%. So, you know, for many of us, our full retirement age is going to be 67. So if you wait till 70, you're going to have 3 years where your benefits will increase by 8%. So you can have up to 124% of your full retirement Social Security benefit. So those are the main points, and if you found this video helpful, I know you're going to find this video up here helpful, which is 3 signs that you're doing way better than what you think you are. Also known as, the videos I also call it, you're richer than you think you are. So I'll see you in that video. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.